AIM-listed ECR Minerals holds a number of gold and mineral exploration assets in Victoria and Queensland in Australia, all at various stages of development. The group also holds a 90% stake in a gold asset in the Philippines and some legacy smelter deals. Following completion of a drilling campaign at its Creswick project in Victoria, the group has shifted operational focus to its assets in Queensland, principally the Lulworth and Hurricane projects. I'm joined today by Chief Executive Andrew Haythorpe and Technical Director Adam Jones, live in the field to bring us up to date. Gentlemen, how are you both today?
Fantastic. Thanks, Alan.
I'm good, thanks, Alan.
Excellent. So, Adam, first of all to you, you're in Queensland, you've been on the ground at Hurricane, you're still there in the tents. Tell us how it's looking.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm just finally getting my boots on the ground, so to speak. I've arrived at Lulworth today. Last week I spent 3 or 4 days at least at Hurricane, having a look at some of the prospects, just to see the size of them and just to verify. Also, just to do a bit of logistic stuff. So, with drill pads and drill access, evaluating the prospect really just for some drilling.
Okay. We saw, of course, some rock chip samples in a recent tweet from the company. So what are the near-term steps you're going to be taking? Obviously, you've outlined the rough outline of work just now, but what steps are you taking in the near term?
So we're going to so those rock chips from the previous owner who we acquiring the tenement off. So one of my first things was to just to verify a few of them, take a few extra rock chips. That's my first step. Also at the same time was to evaluate for the current access onto site. I've already marked out where we can put some drill pads in. The focus is in the richer zones from the the rock chips that have been done already. So that's the main primary focus. It's just one step at a time, really. It's there's a bit of logistics to do. It's sort of a fairly hard country, I suppose you could say, but it's not impossible. Yeah. The timeline at the moment is we're just finalising with track access over the next month. We've had a LiDAR survey just done over Hurricane, more to do with just to see how good the access is, and also a few other it's actually as well just to see if we can see any other outcrops that we haven't mapped yet. There's actually a few other outcrops in the area that haven't even been sampled as to date. So that's probably some of my priorities I'll be doing over the next month.
Okay. Andrew, a question for you. Of course, you've been familiar with this project for a while, even before it was introduced to ECR. Can you just remind us about the potential of what you see there and also the prospectivity?
Well, I think there's probably 4 elements to that, Alan, just to sort of backtrack to the beginning, so to speak. The first element is that even though there's known gold fields and gold mines, small gold mines in the region, and I'll say, in the region, the broader region, in this area, there was a number of stream sediment samples that were taken, again, some time ago, I'm not sure, 5, 10, 20 years ago. And those stream sediment samples showed anomalous gold, in the streams entering into the Hodgkinson River. Those samples were never followed up, again, for whatever historical reason, who knows. Anyway, so the prospector owner of the project that we've done the deal with, he literally took the time and the effort, and considerable effort I might add, to walk up those streams and up to the hills and ridges, and just literally followed the gold up the streams and ridges. And what he found was not 1, not 2, but a multitude of veins, which he's rock chipped and sampled. And he found grades going anywhere from 0 to 1 to 2 to 10 to 20 grams a tonne gold in the rock chips on the veins. Also found anomalous antimony in a number of veins as well. So, all the gold's very fine, so it's very small grain gold. It's, visibly it's difficult to see. I don't think there's any real record of nuggets or obvious gold from the area, which in modern exploration, that's very encouraging, because if it was big lumps of gold, it would have been found 150 years ago, and it would have been mined out, and that's the history of gold mining and large nuggety fields, be they in Victoria or California or a lot of the other sort of famous gold rushes in the 1800s. The other two aspects to it, I think, is everyone who's visited site so far has commented as to how hard it is to walk up the slope to get up to the ridges and towards the higher end of the topography, where the breccia veins and these veins and the gold mineralisation is. So let's just say that, I guess it's safe to say there's only a percentage of the population who are physically fit enough to walk up these steep hills and ridges in 30 plus degrees Celsius heat, in the sort of far north tropics of Australia, then get up there, rock chip and sample, and then put all that in a backpack or carry it all down the hill and then take it back to an assay lab. So it's sort of interesting to think that there's less and less, as a general society comment, there's just less and less fit people who walk up and down mountainsides for a living these days, part of the normal course of their life. So a lot of people are kind of shocked or traumatized by the hard physical requirements that we all took for granted perhaps generations ago when a lot of these discoveries were made. And I think the fourth and last thing, which sort of Adam touched on with LiDAR, which we have just completed a survey, and we're just waiting for the data to come through. For those of you familiar with LiDAR, apologies, but those who are not, LiDAR is a survey technique that looks through the vegetation, like literally all the grass and trees just vanish and disappear. And all you're left with is the contours or the shapes and the topography in very minute detail. The resolution on this stuff is phenomenal. So because these veins are silicified and they're hard, and the ridges, they seem to be, let's say, at least at this point in time, more of them seem to be, up the hill or on the hill. There's a good chance that LiDAR will actually show up and really highlight these veins and structures for us. And if not, at least it'll give us better drill pad access and better drill track design to get in and drill these veins as we move forwards over the coming season and two. So there's a very thick layer of grass. The wet season in North Queensland finishes, it starts in December, it finishes in April, and you end up with 1 to 2 metres of spear grass, and it's all over the North Queensland area. It's very common. But of course, if you're standing in 1 metre deep grass, you can't really see much at your feet because you're literally standing in metre tall grass. Yep. So that also explains, I think, partly why this opportunity exists today, is because most of the time people go up there, this time of year, and it's covered by grass and they can't see much. Ironically, historically, some of these discoveries are made after bushfires, when the fires wiped out the grass and you can actually see what you're walking on and take the samples. So that's really the history of not just the Hurricane Project itself, but a broader sort of regional historical perspective as well. Is it's got that thick grass cover, and now we've got a technology that helps us strip that off, which will help us in designing the drill program coming up.
Understand that. Okay, so on that drill program, you've got some early stage drill targets, I take it. Have you identified drilling contractors yet to undertake the work? Question to you both.
Adam?
Yeah, well, just last week, just some of my old contacts really, and our current drill supervisor, his old contacts up here in North Queensland. We've discussed the project with them. They're happy to have a look at it and take it on. So there shouldn't be any problems there getting anyone in.
Excellent. And do you have any idea on time frame yet?
Well, I'd say at this stage, I don't think it would happen till sort of around the September period. I'd say by the time we finalise tracks, then we've got to get a bulldozer operating to just tidy up the track and put a new track in, and all the drill pads. So it might take a week or two at least. And then it's just getting the personnel on site and drill away.
Excellent. Okay, so that's great news on Hurricane. Great progress there. Now, of course, the other major project that you're engaged with at the moment in Queensland is Lulworth. Adam, you've been spending some time there recently. How's the sampling gone there, and what are your priorities?
So this week, our priorities I've got two field technicians here on site with me right now. I arrived today. So the two field technicians, they've already taken 110 roughly stream sediments, follow up from last year's work. And for the past week or the past 5 days or whatever, they've been taking soils off a grid over the Niobium tantalum ridge, which we've been talking about in a lot of our announcements. It's going very well. There's about 1,400 soils planned there in total, so there's a lot of work, but they've already achieved half. They've already done half of it already, so it's quite surprising that they're really getting the work done. We've got our portable XRF gun here to zap those samples during this week, just to just get a better of an idea which ones might have niobium and tantalum and arsenic and all those other pathfinder minerals, and also so we don't have to take all those 1,400 samples into the lab, so it's makes it more cost effective, and obviously as well the turnaround time from the lab. So I'm personally going to be going around the drainage lines and mapping outcrops, rock chip sampling, anything I can see. Just going around the ridge lines above where we've already had some highly anomalous niobium tantalum, but also gold. Originally we came in this project for the gold. However, just as Andrew said, that new techniques, new assay techniques, they were never assaying for critical minerals or rare earths or anything like this 20 years ago. So that's just bring a vast opportunities into this project. And so we're looking at all those things, and so I'm hoping to report them. Probably the first lots from those stream sets we'll get those results, I reckon, 3 weeks or so.
So very near term.
The first batch of soils will probably be going in this coming week. So it's probably a 3 to 4 week turnaround. We've been told by the lab. So anyway, hopefully they do them a bit quicker.
Good. Okay. And are you considering LIDAR here as well?
Yes. I think it'll be very effective. It'd be something we're not going to do it this year. We'll have to put in the budgets and stuff. However, I think it'll be very worthwhile. I think. Same again. We can by our soil sampling, our stream sediment sampling we've already done. We can really pinpoint certain areas to do the LiDAR data over. Instead of doing the whole tenement and costing a fortune, we can just focus on certain areas. Sure. So I think it is very worthwhile, I think.
Okay, so Andrew, a question to you. Of course, Adam mentioned you were there originally to look for gold. Gold was the primary target. What do you see as the big prize now?
Oh, look, I think the great thing about Molworth is we do have a multitude of potential, literally. And I think the field crew just mentioned last week on their initial work that they've spotted what they've described as pegmatites. And of course, pegmatites are a very interesting style of geology. They become even more interesting when you see pegmatites on a ridge, which we're sampling because we think there's tantalum and niobium there. But then also, furthermore, we just did the minimum suite of rare earths in our assay work on last year's stream set sampling. Rare earths have been detected again in this pegmatitic area. Adam's just gotten there today, sorry. And one of the things to follow up immediately is you got pegmatites as a positive geology indicator. We've got positive mineral indicators being gold, rare earths, tantalum, niobium. So we're really starting to get a luxury of choice in terms of what we look at and focus on moving forwards. I think the key concept, though, is we've been able to pinpoint all the niobium tantalum anomalies and I guess in turn the rare earths that we've turned up so far seem to be more concentrated and focused along this ridge line that Adam's touched on. So that gives us an immediate area of focus. Now there's also gold, some gold anomalism coming off of that ridge line as well. So in the course of the work that Adam's doing, we'll be walking and testing and looking for gold, of course, during that as well. But if we go back to the original thing, there's a great spread of gold anomalism across this whole area. I mean, the aggregate tenements is over 900 square kilometres, and something like 600 square kilometres of that has got gold shedding and gold recorded, in different occurrences. So we've got a multitude of gold anomalies to follow up, and then this particular ridge line, which is a good starting point, really, and we can get our boots on the ground, get familiar with it, see what the opportunity is there from mineralisation point of view. Look for gold at the same time, of course, and then as we get a bigger footprint, perhaps next year with the field work, and possibly expand our activity next field season in 2024. We might have more than one team, multiple teams looking at multiple targets and sort of scaling up carefully on trying to assess and identify all of the points of origin for all of the gold. And then, of course, setting in that process drill priorities for anything worth drilling.
Of course. So Lulworth really shaping up to be, a multi-commodity project of scale. So also, of course, you recently acquired the Blue Mountain project. Question perhaps to you and Adam there. What's the plan short term with Blue Mountain?
Adam, do you want to field that one?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, I suppose, it's one of those projects that are sort of in the background. So, yeah, at the moment, I've just planned to do it probably not until about November or December. Okay. It's further down south in Queensland, so the wet seasons, doesn't affect the project as much. But yeah, I'm hoping to get on the ground there, have a look at it. There's already a couple of areas there which I'm finding a bit, suspect about. Might have a bit of mineralization there, a bit of hard rock mineralization, that is. So so I'm planning to walk into there and do a few rock chips and just start, doing some bit of work there. So around November, December, that's my plan at the moment. I'll have to, the way our Lulworth and Hurricane projects are going, it's I think it's inevitable that I'm going to have to come up here more than once from, I live in Victoria, but, this is 3,000 k's to the north. So, but I'm thinking that, our Sirius projects, I think, are going to be taking off, or they are building up now. I think I'm going to have to be up here, and so I'm going to work in to visit Blue Mountain, in one of those trips later this year.
Okay, that's good to hear. So, Andrew, back to you. Looking more now at the funding position. Of course, we're in really challenging markets at the moment. What's the plan for the remainder of the year?
Well, we've got basically we've sort of almost a year ago, or just on a year ago, we set about selling non-core assets, and as you may recall, we've sold a couple of properties in Victoria, just freehold sort of farmland type properties. We've got one more still to sell in Victoria, and then we've got some other plant and equipment that we're looking at selling, where what we're seeing is we just don't necessarily need the plant and equipment that we've used in Victoria. It's not necessarily suitable for the topography, not to mention that short 3,000 kilometre drive if you want to drag equipment from one end of Australia to the other end of Australia. It's very cost ineffective to do that. So the nature and scale of our activities in ECR is evolving and growing and changing, with the field season now in Queensland. And of course, we're hoping to get some positive answers on mineralisation and distribution, and really getting a heads up on assessment for the opportunity for drilling this year, next year and the year after. So we're sort of accelerating those non-core asset sales. You also mentioned, Alan, that we've got a shareholding in a subsidiary in Philippines, or we've been trying to sell that for the last 12 months. Unfortunately, we just haven't had much success or joy with the general market conditions and, I guess, country risk issues, et cetera. So what we're doing is essentially putting that down to, we're essentially disposing the asset and just reducing the burn rate, where we're not spending any money. And we don't have any future plans for the Philippines as a jurisdiction. It's difficult to operate in. So for the company's point of view, I think for us to really reduce the burn rate and improve the bang for our buck in terms of the investment dollars, the sort of things that Adam's described and that we've touched on today at Hurricane. Hurricane is gold, and clearly some really interesting antimony next to the gold. Lois, extremely interesting because of what we've described today, and those pegmatites, what's in them, what sort of style of pegmatites, what sort of mineralization. You haven't even talked about things like tungsten and molybdenite, other strategic metals which may or may not exist simply because no one's looked there yet. So we're really at that stage of having the first initial look there. And then last but not least, Blue Mountain. Again, we picked that up because it's shedding a lot of gold, and it sits just behind Gladstone and not too far from a town called Biloela in central Queensland. And as Adam said, access is not as restricted as the far north Queensland with the wet season. So we've got a little bit more scope and latitude there for working, on that Blue Mountain project. And again, to actually find, all right, what's the source of the gold? Is there, is that something worth drilling? And they're the questions that we have to ask today, and we hope to get the answers in due course. And then, of course, if it's worth drilling, fingers crossed that we get the sort of results that we think looks commercial.
So, Andrew, you also, of course, have a second drill rig that was recently commissioned. What's the plan with that?
Well, the plan's changed with that this year, Alan, because two things, I guess. Historically, the rig was ordered, must be over a year and a half ago that the order for the second rig was placed. Of course, we took delivery for the rig early in the new year this year. And in the time that rig turned up late last year and then in the course of this year early, we've learnt more about Victoria and the goldfields and the nature there, of course, in terms of drilling. And basically, the new rig that we've got, we feel we'd be better off having the cash in the bank from that new rig and actually using that for further exploration, especially in Queensland and Victoria, just basically because our opportunity to use that new rig isn't as great as what the opportunity is geologically for us to use perhaps contractors, save money and get better results for less money in the different locations. So the nature of ECR is changing and growing as we move forwards. And the rig that took, over a year to turn up effectively, just really, I think we'd be better off selling it if we can.
Excellent. Okay, so just to finish, we're running short on time. Andrew, we've got a very solid ECR investment case across a number of assets. Of course, we've not really touched on Victoria today, and I know you said previously that ECR owns some of the best assets you've seen. What's your latest take on that?
Well, I think Lulworth just continues to shape up. I mean, I think Adam pointed out on the maps last year at Lulworth, air photo interpreted pegmatites. Well, that's always risky. They could be pegmatites, might just be something else that, the guy looking through the lens of a microscope's mistaken or interpreted to be something and it's not that. It sounds like from what we've seen on the ground so far, there is a lot of pegmatite veining in the area. You combine that with the sort of geology in that North Queensland area where we've got Charters Towers nearby, Kidston, Mount Lation, etc., the large gold mines in the district or the region. But then we also have large occurrences of tungsten and tin mining historically in the region. Again, little or no work done in those areas or those commodities in Lulworth. So it's one of the great things, I think, when I said it was one of the best areas I've seen, and I stand by that statement just because we've got 900 square kilometres, not too far from Charters Towers, not too far from Townsville, not a long way off a major highway that heads out towards Mount Isa. I mean, logistically, I've looked at projects in Central Australia or Central Western Australia where it's 600 kilometres to the nearest sealed road. I mean, yeah. And once you sort of get to that sealed road or get off it, then you've got another half a day of bush bashing where there is no track to get to where you want to go in the remote parts of Australia. So Lulworth Range, it's got the right sort of geology. It's got the topography that's giving us a good relief to go and look up streams and hills, as Adam's indicated. The field crew are finding things. We confirmed all that gold across such a broad spread of area with no major gold mines mapped or historically recorded. So it's a brilliant prospect at that level. And we've got such a great opportunity to find gold and hopefully other commodities at the same time. Again, you get more bang for your buck if you can find 5 things instead of just one thing. Yeah,
of course. And just to finish on, near-term milestones that you expect to deliver?
Look, from my perspective, I think the near-term milestones, Adam's pretty well flagged it in terms of small sampling and narrowing down the targets. The follow-up for the gold, hopefully we'll be able to display, visually for our investors and shareholders, something that gives a sense of progress as we progress upstream and up towards the primary source of where the gold's coming from. We might be able to show some way of how that's kind of tracking as we follow that up. And of course, as we're doing that, as Adam said, he'll be taking rock chips, and the field crew have been instructed, please, if you see anything that looks interesting or strange, just grab a lump of it, record the location, put it in a sample bag, and we'll send that into the lab. And moving forwards, hopefully we'll just get more activity, more boots on the ground this year, next year in the field seasons. because 900 square kilometres is a very large chunk of Australia. It's a lot of land to look at, which gives us a lot of opportunity to find something which has not simply been looked for before. And Hurricane's very similar as well. It's just more gold and antimony focused.
Of course. Well, gentlemen, very much appreciate you coming and talking to us today. Particularly you, Adam. Enjoy your evening in the bush there. But Andrew Haythorpe and Adam Jones from ECR Minerals, many thanks for joining us today.
Alan, thank you very much. Adam, thanks for joining us from the bush, mate.
Yeah, thanks.